These are the plaintiff, Xuan Ying and John Edwards. John says their neighbor built a shed which encroached onto their property, and she began harassing them when they complained. Things got physical with his wife and the defendant. His wife was unfairly arrested, and they're here suing for the $5,000 they're owed for bail and pain and suffering. This is the defendant, Antoinette Soderstrom. She says the plaintiff attacked her and punched and clawed at her. The cops were called and she was arrested. The out-of-control woman bruised her breasts and scratched her neck, and she got what she deserved. Oh, them? Ha! She's accused of antagonizing a neighbor.
All parties, please raise your right hands. The People's Court is now in session, and the Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, Ms. Ying and Mr. Edwards, my understanding is that you are neighbors with the defendant?
Yes, we are.
And her sons. And at some point in May of 2020, there was an incident that led to the arrest of Ms. Ying. Is that right? Now, you were not present for the incident, correct, Mr.
No,
Edwards?
I came after the incident.
Okay, Ms. Ying, you are suing for bail money and pain and suffering because your position is that the incident that happened was her and them attacking you, not you attacking them. You ended up getting arrested, but you feel that that's unfair, and you're going to tell me your story now of how it is that things happened out there. But start from the beginning. You're out there and you're gardening, and tell me exactly what happens first.
Can I use my husband to translate it for me, please?
Yeah, let's do that. Can you please, do you speak, what language do you speak, Ms. Ying?
Chinese, Mandarin.
Okay, and Mr. Edwards, do you speak Chinese?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. Edwards, will you ask her what happened on that day and have her start from the beginning?
这个天什么？
他们3个人把我打倒在花园里边。
3 people assaulted her while she was gardening.
Okay. And had anything happened before that assault? Because it's sort of strange that 3 people just suddenly start hitting you.
在我来美国的时候，他们在我家的花园里盖了那个小房子，然后他们也骂了我，打了我，但是警察来以后帮助了我。
She said that since she came to America and they built the shed across the property line, so it was between both properties, without getting permission from our side, and there had been a lot of contention that had been building up with this since 2019 that culminated in the assault in 2020.
Well, are you privy to that, Mr. Edwards? Are you familiar with whatever strife we're talking about here?
Yes, I am.
All right, can you tell me, first of all, when did Ms. Ying come to America? What year are we talking about?
2018 was when she permanently moved here.
Okay. And what is the problem between you? You live in the same. Is this? What are these? Are these trailer homes?
Yeah, they're mobile homes.
So you live in the home with her, and Ms. Soderstrom and her sons are your neighbors?
Yes.
All right. So what is the problem, the ongoing problem? And then I'll turn to Ms. Ying for what happened that day because you weren't there. But what is the background of this? What's going on?
Ms. Soderstrom had a shed built that straddled across the property line without approaching us for permission to cross the property line into our property.
Okay.
And
okay. And when did she build that?
That was in 2019.
Okay. And then, so did you tell her you need to take it down?
We've made multiple requests for her to either take it down or move it, and she did not.
Well, did you ever go to the mobile park, to the board at the mobile park and tell them, hey, mediate and figure this out? Did you ever do that?
Yes, we did.
And what did they say?
They said at the time that they did not want to be involved.
How can they not be involved? It's their mobile park. They have to be involved. They don't get to not be involved.
That's what they told us.
So when you say it's an ongoing problem, for the last year and a half, both sides argue about this, or how has it been an ongoing problem?
I know my wife and the defendant have had words on multiple occasions, And my wife has been harassed when she's been out in our yard on multiple occasions as well.
How so?
She's constantly being stared at by the neighbors. They're constantly making comments to her.
Such as?
他们发音英语，你发音英语。
They say, Chinese people, get out America. Don't stay here, bother me.
All right, so on that day, you're working in the yard and all three of them come and attack you?
Yes.
Is this the first time that they physically attack you? Or have
Yes.
they physically attacked you before?
Before just the voice me.
Okay, and so how did they attack you? Who did what?
Woman pick my stomach and my leg. The man, two men, pick my leg and my back and my eyes and the head.
Okay. Ms. Soderstrom, what's going on here?
Hello, Judge. Nice to see you. Let me start from the beginning. I had an old shed that was right next to their fence for 20 years, a little teeny shed. And then I upgraded to a bigger shed and I put it in the same spot my old shed was on. So that was that. And then the owner, Mr. Edwards' father, said I could leave it there because he didn't want me to have a hardship moving it. So I left it there, and then we put up a chicken wire on my property line so my dog could stay in the back. I put it 6 inches over the property line so I wouldn't have any problems with Ms. Ying. So this morning that the incident started, there's yelling. She's yelling, and I hear her in my backyard. So I get up and I went out my sliding glass door, and she's yelling with my son. And I told her, what's the problem? What's the matter? Because I didn't know what she was upset with. So she just starts yelling and she's just ranting and raving. And then she just dug down with a gardening tool in front of her and splat dirt in my eyes. And then she went like this and started like hitting me. She hit me once, and then I grabbed her arm, and my son pulled it's a little gardening tool away from her. So I went to Bob's house to tell him what she was doing, which,
Bob
I don't
is
know
who?
what I was thinking.
Bob is who? It's
Bob is
Mr.
the
Mr.
owner.
Edwards.
Mr. Edwards' father.
So you went, just a second. So you walk onto the property to speak to Mr. Edwards' father, who's the actual owner. Is that
Right.
correct, Mr. Edwards? He
At
was
the
alive,
time,
right?
it was my dad's, yeah.
Okay, so go on.
Okay, so I go over there and knock at the door, and then Mrs. Yang comes up the it's like a ramp. She comes up the ramp running at me and pushes me over and just is on top of me and just attacking me, hitting me, just on top of me. I was trying to push her off and I just couldn't push her off. And that's when my son Steven came over and pulled her off, and she was still wailing back and forth like that. And he pulled her off. And then that's when I got up and I went to my home. And the cops showed up shortly after that. And my other 2 sons were out there by then too. So I had 3 sons out there by then.
So what happens? There's the original fight, then there's that second fight, and then
She came
how
up
does the fight end on the
ramp.
porch? How does the fight end?
My son Steven takes her off of me.
And who was taking
That's how
you
it
off
ended.
of her?
I was on the bottom.
According to the plaintiff, you are racist against her, and you and your sons
Yeah.
are exhibiting some serious anti-Asian racism and telling her to go back to China and other stuff. Is she making that up?
That's not true. No, that's not true. I have a son that's German. I have a son that's Mexican, and my Steven is Irish. So
Okay.
I don't know where racist. I'm not.
No, that's
racist
pretty
at all.
eclectic. I guess I'm trying to figure out why in your answer to the complaint, you state as follows. I've been living in my home for 20 years. I've never had any problems with my neighbors. Co-plaintiff John Edward brought his mail-order bride to live with him and his father. Why would you make such a statement like that? That sounds a little
That's true
racist to
because
me.
Mr. Edwards
Like you're
told
making
me
certain...
that. Well,
Oh, you actually have
Mr.
factual
Edwards-
information that she's a mail-order bride?
He told me that. Mr. Edwards told me that.
No, I
Mr.
didn't.
Edwards told you, I ordered my bride from a catalog.
Well, he just told me she was a mail order bride. We were talking at one point before this incident all went astray.
Mr. Edwards, did you ever tell this lady that your wife was a, quote, mail-order bride?
No, I did not, because I met my wife while I was living overseas in China for over 10 years. That's where I met her, I married her, and we lived for over 10 years together. And as far as the end of the incident,
odds are pretty good that this statement, mail order bride, is just something coming out of her dark heart, right?
yes.
Let me ask you a question. We have some pictures of the injuries on both sides. So let's look at the injuries on both sides. Ugh, that eye looks terrible. And let's look at the pictures of the injuries that you supplied. That's your arm. That's the side of your body.
That's my side of my back.
That's your chest. So here we have additional pictures of the plaintiff's injuries. Wow. Apparently, the police go over there. They speak to the three of them. Does he ever speak to Ms. Ying?
Yes, he did.
And is it in the police report?
The only mention I saw in the police report of him talking to her was at the hospital, and him saying that she just kept saying they hit
over
me,
and
they
over
hit
again.
me.
They hit me, they attacked me, and he made some comment along the lines of, she couldn't tell me in chronological order what happened, which is
Right.
an interpretation issue. But what happens is he ends up arresting her. And that's why we're here, because honestly, in a situation like this, what the police should do is give everybody the phone number to the prosecutor's office and let the prosecutor figure it out, or arrest everybody. That's also an alternative. I'm not exactly sure how this officer, who wasn't present for this, has determined that your wife is responsible. I don't understand what ended up happening with the criminal case, Mr. Edwards.
The criminal case was actually thrown out of court.
And when and why?
It was October of last year, and it was because the prosecution could not prove they had a chance to get a conviction.
Okay, and let me ask you, Ms. Soderstrom, were you in court when that happened?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, it never went in front of the judge.
Right. So, yeah, I know the prosecutor dropped the charges, but why? Did they tell you why?
No. They just said they were dismissing it.
All right, so Ms. Ying and Mr. Edwards, here's the bottom line. I have grave concerns in this case. I am having difficulty that someone who calls your wife because she is Asian a mail order bride, when in fact you lived abroad for 10 years and met her. I am having trouble thinking that this isn't anti-Asian. I would never, had I been the cop, arrested your wife. I would have told all parties, here's the information, go take it to the DA and let the DA make the decision. And we all know what the DA did when it was the DA's turn to make the decision. They looked at the facts on both. We can never prove which way this case went. We're dropping this, and she doesn't have criminal charges against her. Now, your lawsuit is for her pain and suffering and for the bail. I do not understand how, if a case was dropped, you didn't get your bail back. Or are you telling me that $3,000 was 10% of her bail? What is it you're telling me?
$3,000 was 10% of her bail. She was locked up without release, so I had to post a bond to get her out of prison.
So you had to get a bondsman to pay a $30,000 bond? Wow.
Yes.
That's just nuts on a case like this. And
You're on.
I have no doubt, I mean, I imagine that you were trying to act very speedily and you didn't get the benefit. Does she have any priors?
No.
Right. It shouldn't, like, I'm just in shock that it was 30 grand to begin with. I'm in shock that the police officer ended up making that arrest, because this is one of those cases where it is very hard to make the judgment call. So there's so much that's upsetting me in this case, Mr. Edwards, but here's a bottom line. You have a lawsuit where you and your wife are suing her for your 10% bond that you paid a bondsman because you didn't wait to go before a judge, and I don't blame you, because there's no question a judge would have lowered that, but I don't blame you. I get it. All right? You're suing her, and you're suing her for pain and suffering. And here's what your side has to prove to me in order to win that. You have to prove to me, by a preponderance of the evidence, that they struck the first blows. Okay? I don't know who struck the first blows. We've got her saying that your wife started it. We got your wife saying that she started it. How, on God's green acres, no matter how much concern I have, can I come to deduce, without cameras out there or independent witnesses, who struck the first blow? I can't. You understand me? I can't. So I cannot rule in your favor based on these facts, despite how disturbing I find the way things went down. Therefore, I have no choice but to rule in favor of the defendant. But I got to tell you something, Ms. Soderstrom. This is most certainly not a victory for you. I have pointed
No,
out
it's not,
numerous
because
things
I'm-
here.
I'm-
No, it's not.
Yes.
Because this
No,
is
it's
pretty,
not.
this doesn't make you look like you're in a very good light. We all know you made up on your own
This
the
is a
mail order
bad
bride stuff, because that's not
situation.
how they met. So this is a
This is
very
a
bad
no-win
situation. And Ms.
situation. It's a no-win.
Soderstrom, here's what should
Yes.
happen. It isn't a, yeah, it is a no-win, because these are now your neighbors.
It's a no-win.
And if you can't have
I
peace
know.
in your own home, I don't know where you can have peace in a day like today.
Well, I do have
so
peace in my
let
own
me
home.
give
Yes.
everybody, well, but you don't have peace when you walk out. So I don't want you to talk anymore. I want you to do something we call listening.
Okay.
Everybody here knows that you're stuck with the situation, apparently, and you are living next door to each other. Mercifully, the offending shed has been moved over, as well it should have been when the first complaint happened. So here's where we are, folks. You don't need to be friends, but you do need to be at peace. So nobody here should really be talking to the other person. And you need to leave each other alone. And I suggest, if the problems continue, that either of you should be able to get a Ring doorbell or some kind of camera system where you can have proof of the things that are being said and done. Okay? Good luck to everyone. My verdict
Thank you,
is for
Judge.
the
I
defendant.
agree. Thank
Don't
you.
thank me.
Well, the judge has found for the defendant in this case. The plaintiffs do not prevail. They're not going to get the $5,000 that they were seeking, but they did get some really strong advice from the judge. Let's see what they think about it.
The whole case has made me more upset, but since that incident, I've already installed cameras around the place.
I guess the big question is, do you think you can live in peace with each other? I know you're very close to each other, but what happens now?
Well, we just keep to ourselves, and we have since this had happened, and we've already made plans to move in the near future.
Well, if you were to do that, that would certainly alleviate all of the problems. No question about that. Well, I hope it works out for you. I'm sorry, but that's the judge's decision. You lose the case. Mrs. Soderstrom, let me ask you. You heard what the judge said to you. What are you thinking
Yes.
now?
Well, I believe it's a no-win situation because of the living situation being so close. It has been a nightmare for me. I'm an elderly woman, and I was terribly abused. And I just hope that we could just mind our own business and stay on our properties and live in peace.
Well, that's what the judge encouraged you to do, so let's hope it works
Yes.
out that way. And good luck to you. And
Yeah.
if your neighbors move,
Thank you.
then that will help your situation. All right, Harvey, this is really quite a case. What do you think about this?
Doug, this is a really interesting case, and this happens a lot, where two people get in a fight, and usually the judge will say, if it's clear that the aggressor is the one who's going to lose, even if the other person fought back because it becomes self-defense. But in a lot of cases like this, a lot of times the judge just simply cannot figure out who the aggressor was, who started it, and then it looks more like mutual combat. And when it's mutual combat, usually neither party wins in court.
My sister brought her 3 little dogs to my house, and one of them chewed up the side of my couch, damaging it. My sister thinks it's a big joke, but now I need a new couch, and I want to sue her. Should I?
No, you shouldn't sue your sister over something her little doggy did. Just don't let her dog back in your house.
Right? What's the couch worth? What's your relationship with your family and your sister and your sister-in-law worth?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, come on.
Yeah, just,
right?
I say let it go.
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah, this is America. You can do whatever you want. And certainly you would be able, depending on whether the judge thought that you were in control of monitoring the dog versus your sister being in control
Right.
of monitoring the dog, whoever was supposed to be watching the dog should have been watching the dog, and
Right.
they shouldn't have been left there to be able to chew, because it takes a while to chew, and if the dogs had been monitored, that wouldn't have been happening. But just don't let the dogs back in your house, for goodness sake.
Or take your own dogs over to her house. And
Yeah, and then turn them loose on her furniture, and then you'll feel better.